These people will stop at nothing for power, and good God Almighty, we better pray that they don't get it, because they will retake their throne with blood and vengeance in their blackened, soulless hearts.
Never tell them who I am. Well, how dare I'm a man. 6 shooters in both my hands. I'm a cold-blooded brother, a real bad mother. Watch out, honey, here I
am. Welcome back to another episode of Revved Up. And what a time to be alive as the election season hard charges us like Joe Biden at a preteen pool party.
And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
So I hope you got your fully automatic assault keyboards locked and loaded and your long-range meme launchers primed and ready, because nuclear information warfare is upon us, and it's time we show the world that no one outguns the men of MAGA. No AI minefield will shatter our shit posters. No media mercenaries will snipe our soldiers, and no big tech censorship will silence our song. We will be victorious in our march to the promised land, and when we arrive, the world will see where once there was a swamp lies only a land for the people, by the people. And the people will know that our mission was a righteous mission. But in order to win, we must fight, and it won't be pretty. In order to win, you must all be ready to brawl, like Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull, like Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, like Joe Biden at a preteen pool party.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did, and back in those days, to show how things have changed, one of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. Well, he came off, and he said, I'll meet you outside. My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors. Not a joke. There was a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse, the only white guy, and he did all the pools. He was the mechanic. And I said, what am I going to do? He said, come down here in the basement where mechanics, where all the pool filter is. You know the chain, there used to be a chain that went across the deep end. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up, he said, you walk out with that chain. And you walk to the car and say, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. I said, you kidding me? He said, no, if you don't come back. And he was right. So I walked out with the chain. And I walked up to my car. And they had, in those days, you used to remember the straight razor. You'd bang them on the curb, get them rusty, put them in a rain barrel, get them rusty. And I looked at him, but I was smart then. I said, first of all, I said, when I tell you get off the board, you get off the board, and I'll kick you out again, but I shouldn't have called you Esther Williams. I apologize for that.
If you want to know why the right wins the internet, it's because we know how to laugh. Now, before we get going, I just want to remind everyone to hit that like button, and if you haven't already yet, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because we all know it's voices like mine that are first to get taken out back and old yellered by the folks at Big Tech. Now, the best thing you can do is just share this video. But if you'd like to help support the channel, there are several ways to contribute down in the description below. I've had several very generous donations recently, and I'm very thankful for that, but anything you can contribute is a huge help. All donations do go to improving the show. Now that the shameless plugs are out of the way, let's talk information and memetic warfare. The internet is a glorious place. When the Melvins who spent most of their adolescent existence trying to open their gym lockers from the inside designed this digital dreamscape, they surely envisioned a domain where they could rule supreme. That it would be a digital respite over the flesh and blood world where they never got the girl. For the first time in history, the Melvins could have fixed the narrative and guide the social mores into the utopian technocratic world of their childhood sci-fi comic books. For the first time, through their technological brilliance, they could shape the world in their image. And for a while, everything was going well. The Melvins became the richest and most powerful men on earth. They were the governors of a digital Wild West, but it was the town part of the Wild West where civility reigned supreme, not the frontier part where cowboys, Indians, bandits, and industrialists spilled blood over land, treasure, and, most importantly, political influence. Of course, most of this era was built under the political oversight of the Obama administration, an administration that the big tech oligarchs were amicable towards. Sure, you had your political snipings on the outskirts of town, but this Wild West town still had its leftist sheriff in Barack Obama, and he kept everything nice and safe in Leftyville. It wasn't until November 8, 2016, that these leftist Melvins realized that the conservative Chads were much better built for battle, even in the digital realm of their own making, and the Wild West open frontier had to face algorithmic annihilation. But before we talk about how the free speech Wild West of social media devolved into an Orwellian hellscape of censorious technocrats ultimately becoming the incestuous sibling of the mainstream media, let's talk about how they were simultaneously the scarecrow, tin man, and cowardly lion skipping down that yellow brick road on a mission to meet the man behind the curtain and subsequently suckle his CNN-shaped balls. As I already foreshadowed, that melancholy mission began on the night of November 8, 2016, when Hillary Clinton became not the first woman to become not the President of the United States of America. And like every other failure in leftist history, Clinton needed a sound scapegoat. She later read a whole book of excuses by just pointing to random words in the dictionary and tacking them onto the list. But in the meantime, she had her mainstream media cronies taking Pol Pot shots at social media until they cried uncle and transmogrified their platforms from American waves of grain into the communist killing fields of Cambodia. And nobody bore the brunt of that worse than Facebook. From The Atlantic. What Facebook did to American democracy. And how democratic distribution of information is destructive towards democracy? From BuzzFeed. How the 2016 election blew up in Facebook's face. Honestly, that's just what they get for treating speech like it was 1776. Don't they know that since the Second Amendment only refers to muskets, the First Amendment only refers to pamphlets? Jeez. Idiots. From CNN Business. Facebook is again having to account for its role in the 2016 election. Because when Buffalo Hill wants her pound of flesh, you'll give it to her, you fucking lampshade. From Forbes. How Facebook helped Donald Trump become president. Because we can't just give credit to pro-Trump users that knew how to market Trump's message. Those hillbilly pig fuckers can't even read and write, let alone use them newfangled internets. From The Guardian. Facebook's failure. Did fake news and polarized politics get Trump elected? Well, yes, actually, fake news and Trump exposing it as fake news did help get Trump elected. From New York Magazine. Facebook haunted by its handling of 2016 election meddling. A public relations side effect of getting a Kunta Kinte lashing in the public square. And the list goes on, but this last one leads us to the meddling muckraker Bolshevik bullshit narrative that Trump never would have gotten elected if it wasn't for those damn Russians, because again, it couldn't have been American pro-Trump users spreading their message for Trump like Stormy Daniels spreads her legs for, well, Trump. Of course, anyone with two brain cells to rub together could suss out why this is a butt-fucking retarded supposition in the first place, when even NPR interviewing a journalist from The New Yorker calls this out. You know the media picked poorly in the choose-your-own-adventure narrative of their own authorship. Journalists argue Russian interference has been exaggerated. New Yorkers Masha Gessen and Adrian Chin have covered Russia extensively. They tell NPR's David Green why they think the impact of Russian election and interference is largely overblown. I think that Russian meddling in the election is an important issue. At the same time, the simplistic narrative that basically imagines a bunch of sub-illiterate and English trolls posting mostly static and sort of absurd advertising could have influenced American public opinion to such an extent that it fundamentally changed American politics is ridiculous on the face of it. And the fact that we're sort of falling deeper and deeper into that vision of the story is a little nuts. It is a little nuts. And the media's got even littler as they watch Trump wheelbarrow his out across stage on election night. But let's be real. We're all on Facebook. Who stops and pays attention to political sponsored content? Trust me, I bought enough ads for these videos to know that it's like throwing money at a stripper and thinking she'll beg you to take her home with you. Though to be fair, I did have some success at the strip clubs in my more indiscriminate youth, but that's another story. But even USA Today had to acknowledge that Russian election ads were placed more scantily than said stripper's attire on the main stage. We read every one of the 3,517 Facebook ads bought by Russians. Here's what we found. Only about 100 of the ads overtly mentioned support for Donald Trump or opposition to Hillary Clinton. A few dozen referenced questions about the U.S. election process and voter integrity, while a handful mentioned other candidates like Bernie Sanders, Ted Cruz, or Jeb Bush. Blaming an election map that looked like this on 100 Russian ads on a social media platform as large as Facebook is like blaming a global flood on the fisherman who took a piss over the ledge of his Boston whaler. But of course, the Dems, deep state, and media, they needed a Russian backstop to bolster their bullshit Russian collusion narrative, so Mueller went so far as to indict a handful of Russian companies for social media meddling in our election under the confident assumption that they would merely laugh in Russian from across the Bering Sea, as media picks up the ball and rushes it across the goal line for him. Never the fuck mind that we now know that former CIA Director John Brennan buried evidence that Putin actually favored a Hillary Clinton presidency when one of these companies decided to hop a Cessna and sail stateside to call Fignia, which is Russian for bullshit. The DOJ moved immediately to drop the case as Deep State once again fumbled the narrative football. From the Daily Wire. Mueller indicted a Russian company that didn't even exist, court transcripts say. This week, one of the Russian companies accused by special counsel Robert Mueller of funding conspiracy to meddle in the 2016 U.S. presidential election was revealed in court to not have existed during the time period alleged by Mueller's team of prosecutors, according to lawyers representing the defendant. I think we are dealing with a situation where the government having indicted the proverbial ham sandwich. So what's the real reason social media came under fire for the 2016 election? Free speech and political messaging from the American right laid bare the countercultural seismic shift under Barack Obama that turned the left from the cool, hip, fun-loving crowd into the preening, moralistic, caring community, while the right proved that freedom was funner than fuck. In 2016, mimetic warfare went nuclear, and as I stated in the intro, no one outguns the men of MAGA. As conservative and pro-Trump memes dominated the digital domain for their brash sense of humor, the newly Karenized left made it abundantly clear that the left can't meme. To demonstrate the left versus right's nuclear meme capabilities and determine which one is America and which one is North Korea, you'll need to see them side by side. And for that, we're gonna need a montage.
Go. Hello, Dr. Kyle. I'm ready when you are. But on the other...
That's when you need to put yourself to the test and show us the passage of time. We're gonna need a montage. Ooh, it takes a montage. Show a lot of things happening at once. Remind everyone of what's going on. And with every shot, show a little improvement. To show it all would take too long. That's called a montage. Do we want a montage? In anything if you want to go from just a beginner to a pro, you need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
So you can have complete control.
That's good.
Anything if you want to go from
I've got it right here in
beginner
front of
to
me.
a pro, you need a montage. Ooh, it takes a montage. Always fade out in a montage. If you fade out, it seems like
Wow. Excellent.
Now ask yourself, which party would you want to attend? For the leftist memes, I went heavy on Occupy Democrats, not only because they are the largest purveyor of leftist memes, but because they are also the top source of news for lefties on Facebook. According to Newswhip, the top Facebook pages for mainstream political content were Fox News and Occupy Democrats by a considerable distance. Both publishers have driven nearly 100 million engagements on their Facebook native content. Combine that with the fact that even the leftist rag PolitiFact gives them a 0% true on their scorecard, and all of a sudden it makes sense why arguing with a lefty is about as useful as AI to the Amish. And that brings us to our next line item on the docket of Democrat disinformation. Following in the fashion of every leftist autocrat from Stalin to Castro to Mao to Kim to Pol Pot to Mussolini to motherfucking Mugabe, the leftist technocrats decided that anyone that they can't win over, they'll just kill the fuck off. From Alex Jones to Milo Yiannopoulos to Gavin McInnes, and now a whole slew of QAnon pages, the San Franciscans at Big Tech have been implementing AI technology to round up right-wing co-conspirators and line them up against the proverbial digital wall. Of course, this is all done under the guise of halting the spread of false and misleading information, but when their weather vane always points right, we know what fucking direction the wind blows. But what the fuck do I know? I'm just a right-wing conspiracy theorist. I mean, why shouldn't we trust big tech companies that are currently developing AI for global surveillance? I'm probably just a paranoid tinfoil hatter, right? Well, if you're all like me, we all breathed a collective sigh of relief when Facebook implemented their independent fact checkers feature, because obviously independent means unilaterally unbiased, right? It's not like you could go on vacation in Texas and take a picture of a state-funded plaque reciting the Second Amendment and a quote from George Washington and worry that, shit. Well, I guess even our constitutional rights aren't even given a pass by these censorious sallies. Now, Facebook is offering $50,000 for AI that can better detect hateful memes. Considering that we on the right have spent the entire Trump era being smeared as racist bigots and every phobe in the book, we can safely surmise that its primary function will be to silence those of our ilk. In fact, my intrepid researchers were able to unearth some rare footage of Mark Zuckerberg himself utilizing technocratic enhanced interrogation methods to silence one of the men of MAGA personally.
As you can see, we've had our eye on you for some time now. You have a social security number, you pay your taxes, and you help your landlady carry out her garbage. I'm going to be as forthcoming as I can be. We know that you've been contacted by a certain individual, a man who calls himself
The Donald.
Now, whatever you think you know about this man is irrelevant. He is considered by many authorities to be the most dangerous man alive.
How about I give you the finger, and you give me my free speech?
You disappoint me.
You can't scare me with this Gestapo crap. I know my rights. I want my free speech.
What good is free speech if you are unable to speak? The fact of the matter is, Democrats have discovered a cronyist loophole to our constitutional rights by outsourcing the abolishment of them to private corporations. And we can only expect the practice of silencing pro-Trump voices to accelerate as the 2020 elections approach. We can see that YouTube is already removing pro-Trump campaign ads, actually they were direct Trump campaign ads, from their platform. Now, they say it was because they were selectively edited, but did they remove the ad that Joe Biden launched his entire campaign on, where he selectively edited the infamously misleading clip of Trump's "good people on both sides" address? Fuck no, they didn't. This is not about truth. It's about power. And when the truth threatens your power, you call it a conspiracy theory. And when that doesn't work, you move to outright ban it. It is the Orwellian hellscape laid barren before our very eyes. But this is what happens when you give the Melvins and other weak men and women power. It invariably leads to oppressive autocratic rule where entire systems are set up not to oppress you, that's just a byproduct, but to protect them. There's a reason strong men and women of sound courage and fortitude always tend to lean to the right. It's because they believe in their inherent ability to protect, provide, and fend for themselves and their loved ones. So they don't feel the inclination to limit your rights out of fear of what you might do with them. So they aren't overly systematic in building up the social structure because you live your life, I'll live mine, and I know that in the end, if I make good choices, I'll be fine. But when you give power to weak people, they don't have the confidence that their God-given talents, beliefs, and abilities will provide the protection they need, so they build up power structures that insulate themselves and keep everyone that isn't them on the outside looking in. They know that they are weak and both factually and morally incorrect. But they don't care because to them, to live in the morally and factually correct world puts them and their interests at risk. They are utterly selfish. They know that they can't win the argument, so they use their constructed power apparatuses to destroy the message and anything else that threatens them. That's why the left always recruits from disenfranchised segments of the population. They know that if they can use their minority status to prey upon their fears, they can whip them up into a frenzy and then aim them at their political opponents as a weaponized human shield. It's why Vladimir Lenin referred to his followers as useful idiots, which is exactly what they are. And nothing threatens these Melvins' power quite like Donald Trump, who came into office under the promise to uproot every last one of them, root and stem. And I don't need to rehash everything that the Dems have done to obstruct the Trump presidency. You can find much of that in my last episode. But what we're about to see as the election nears is going to be nuttier than squirrel shit. According to Fox News, Dems are deploying a DARPA-funded AI-driven information warfare tool to target pro-Trump accounts. The AI technology was first developed as a military technology to counteract Islamic State propaganda in terrorist hotbeds, so it's even more alarming that the advisor to the political digital assassination squad is none other than Stanley McChrystal, former Joint Special Operations Commander to the forces in Afghanistan during the 2000s. Alarming as that is, let's not gloss over the fact that utilizing taxpayer-funded technology to engage in political information warfare at home is about as illegal as utilizing paid-for partisan propaganda in the FISA courts to spy on an opponent's political campaign, Hussein Obama. And this is essentially where it leaves us. We have a Democrat Party that has had a stranglehold on the mass media for decades now, Fox News notwithstanding. Then we had open communications platforms that led to the mainstream media and, by default, Democrats being challenged to the point where Trump gained the presidency under the promise to drain the swamp. That was followed by a gradual push to silence conservative voices, primarily ones that had massive movements behind them. That was then followed by a team of analog fact-checkers, meaning to ward off impressionable minds from any conservative ideas, even if it's something as simple as the Second Amendment is stated verbatim from our Constitution. But since that hasn't helped, they are now outsourcing artificial intelligence that can put their efforts on overdrive as we head into the home stretch of the 2020 election. These people will stop at nothing for power, and good God almighty, we better pray that they don't get it, because they will retake their throne with blood and vengeance in their blackened, soulless hearts. So I don't care if you live in the asshole of San Francisco, but I repeat myself, where it's bluer than a Smurf fucking a bucket of periwinkle paint, you need to get your ass out in November and cast that ballot for Donald J. Trump. And make it clear, we will not be silenced. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm going to try to put out 1 or 2 of these videos a week, but I do work a full-time job, so if you're interested in seeing more frequent content, please consider contributing to my Subscribestar, Patreon, or PayPal accounts listed below, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thorburn. And as always, rev your engines, ride hard, and fight like hell.
Every time who I am, well, how dare I'm a man.